It was an unusually quiet night at St. Mary's Hospital. The hum of fluorescent lights buzzed in the empty hallways, punctuated only by the occasional beeping of monitors and the shuffle of nurses moving through their shifts. Everything seemed ordinary until something extraordinary happened. A stray dog, a scruffy, black and white mutt, slipped in through the hospital's automatic doors. No one noticed him at first. He moved with an eerie sense of purpose, as if he had walked these halls before. His nose twitched, catching the scent of something, or someone, that drew him further inside. Security cameras later revealed that he entered the building at precisely 11:03 p.m. No alarms went off, no one stopped him. It was as though he was invisible, a shadow in the night. The hospital staff was too preoccupied to notice the soft sound of his paws on the tiled floor. The dog wandered through the halls, bypassing the cafeteria and the waiting rooms, ignoring every distraction. His path wasn't random. He seemed to know exactly where he was going. His destination? The pediatric wing. Room 206. Inside that room lay a child, a young boy named Jamie, barely clinging to life. Jamie had been in a coma for 3 months after a car accident. His parents visited daily, praying for a miracle, but the doctors had all but given up hope. The dog stopped outside Jamie's door. He sniffed the air once, then pushed the door open with his nose. The nurses on duty later admitted that they'd seen the door ajar but hadn't thought much of it. They assumed it was the night breeze or a doctor checking in. But it wasn't. The dog padded into the room, his ears perking up at the faint sound of Jamie's heartbeat monitor. He approached the boy's bed slowly, as if not to disturb him. Then, in a move that would later baffle everyone who heard about it, the dog placed his head gently on Jamie's hand. What happened next was nothing short of extraordinary. The boy's heartbeat, which had been weak and irregular for weeks, began to stabilize. The monitor that once beeped sporadically now hummed with a steady rhythm. Nurse Claire, who was on her rounds, noticed the change first. She rushed into the room, her eyes widening at the sight of the dog. At first, she thought it was a hallucination, an overworked mind playing tricks on her. But as she stepped closer, she realized the dog was real. And so was the change in Jamie's condition. The boy's fingers twitched beneath the dog's paw. "Jamie," Claire whispered, her voice trembling. The boy didn't wake up, but for the first time in months, there was movement, a sign of life. Claire was torn between shooing the dog away and letting him stay. Something about the scene felt right. She decided to let him be, at least for the moment. By morning, the dog's presence was the talk of the hospital. Some dismissed it as a coincidence, while others whispered about miracles. Jamie's parents, who had arrived at the break of dawn, were overwhelmed with hope when they saw their son's improved vitals. Doctors ran every test they could think of, but none of them could explain the sudden improvement. Jamie's brain activity had increased overnight, and his heart rate was stronger than it had been in weeks. And then there was the dog. He refused to leave Jamie's side, growling softly when anyone tried to remove him. The hospital staff, moved by the odd but heartwarming bond, decided to let him stay, for now. As days turned into weeks, Jamie's condition continued to improve. His parents brought food and blankets for the dog, who they started calling Buddy. Nurses took turns sneaking him treats and scratching behind his ears during their breaks. Even the grumpy head physician, Dr. Maxwell, couldn't deny that something special was happening. "Maybe it's just dumb luck," he grumbled one afternoon, watching Buddy curl up at Jamie's feet. But deep down, even he wasn't so sure. Buddy became a fixture in room 206, and Jamie's progress defied all logic. His fingers twitched more frequently, his facial expressions grew more animated, and his doctors began to hope for what they once thought impossible. One fateful evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and cast a warm glow through the hospital windows, something miraculous happened. Buddy, who had been resting at the foot of the bed, suddenly stood up. He leaned closer to Jamie, his nose brushing the boy's cheek. And then Jamie's eyes fluttered open. It was subtle at first, a blink, a slight turn of the head, but it was enough to send Nurse Claire running for help. Within minutes, Jamie's room was filled with doctors and nurses, all scrambling to witness what they could only describe as a miracle. Jamie's parents clung to each other, tears streaming down their faces as their son slowly regained consciousness. "Buddy," Jamie whispered, his voice hoarse but unmistakable. "Where's Buddy?" The dog, as if understanding his name, wagged his tail and licked the boy's hand. The room erupted in a mix of laughter and tears. Buddy stayed with Jamie for another week, watching over him as he regained his strength. But one morning, as suddenly as he had appeared, Buddy was gone. The staff searched the hospital grounds, but there was no sign of him. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Jamie made a full recovery, and though he couldn't explain how he knew Buddy's name, he insisted that the dog had visited him in his dreams. "He told me to wake up," Jamie said simply, his eyes shining with a childlike certainty. The hospital staff placed a plaque outside room 206 in Buddy's honor. It read, "In memory of Buddy, the dog who reminded us that miracles come in all shapes and sizes." To this day, no one knows where Buddy came from or where he went. But those who were there that night will never forget the dog who broke all the rules and saved a life.